Hello again, all of you Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast fans. Welcome. I'm Janice Debo, your host, and I have a guest with me today, Kurt Lohmann. He's going to talk a little bit about him and his business. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for having me here.
You are welcome. Just so glad we could get together and do this because I'm all about helping people promote their business, but also give our audience some fun to talk about some life experiences too.
That's great.
So tell me a little bit about your background. We'll get into the business stuff later, but just a little bit about your background. And I know you're local to me in the Bend area, but yeah, let's talk about Kurt.
Okay. Well, I hail from Houston, Texas, even though I don't have an accent, which is a blessing, being what my mom called us TV babies because we watched a lot of TV and picked up that California accent. But yeah, moved to the Northwest after I got out of school, a number of years after I got out of school, and haven't left yet. I actually did a stint overseas in Japan, but I've been in either Seattle, Portland, or now Bend for the last 30 years. And I have three kids. I have twin 13-year-olds and a 14-year-old. So three teens is quite the experience. And yeah, I've got a wife. We've been married for about 20 years now, and we both work out of the house. It's another really interesting experience. We were forced to kind of one of us go upstairs and one downstairs. So that's working out a lot better because we both talk pretty loudly. And she does sales and I do sales and marketing. So it was always, hey, can I have a few minutes to make this call type thing. But yeah.
Oh, that is great. Three teenagers. Well, I can applaud that. Wow. What is life like with three teens and two 13-year-olds at one time?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I guess it's a blessing. My kids aren't super active in extracurricular activities. For a while they were. My son does a couple clubs a week. They're not really into sports, even though we've wanted them to kind of push in that direction.
Mhm.
But looking back, my wife and I are like, well, maybe we shouldn't push them because our lives are pretty busy as it is. And from picking them up, taking them to appointments to things, and running our businesses, it's pretty hectic.
I can only imagine what if they were involved in a lot because you'd have to hire an Uber driver and keep him
Yeah.
on staff.
Oh, that's coming very soon.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. Houston, huh? You hail from the south. That's not really southwest. Houston, I consider more not quite central. And I've been accused of being a Texan, but I'm a North Carolina girl, so I don't know how the accents actually prevail between the two. I don't
They're
think I
pretty
sound.
similar, actually. Yeah, they're pretty similar. North Carolina and Tennessee is another one's very similar to Texas. But yeah, Texans consider themselves part of the South, but the real South doesn't. So that's kind of the way it works.
Oh my gosh. I'll embrace that they can be Southerners, but I had to actually get rid of a lot of my accent when I was started working in a corporate office because I was dealing with the public, and I had to get some mentoring from one of the guys I worked for to drop some because people can't understand you. So
Yeah. Yeah, I finally got rid of all the I'm fixing to that's pretty much the Texas thing. Fixing to go there. And when I moved in the Northwest, people are like, You're fixing? What are you fixing to what are you talking about? So,
oh, well,
yeah. Took about 20 years, but I got rid of it.
one of my favorites is, well, bless your heart. So
Yeah.
you never know what that means coming from a Southerner.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, bless their heart. So anyway, okay, so life is kind of busy. You've been in the Northwest for 30 years. That's something. You beat my record. I've only been here 15. Tell me a little bit about what it was like to, if you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about what it's like to grow up in Texas. Now, I've been to Houston and I didn't really care for it, so I'll leave my opinion out of this. Crazy place, crazy. But
Yeah.
what was it like to grow up in that area?
Uh, we had a pretty good childhood. I have three brothers, and we're all about a year and a half apart. We had a beautiful place in the city limits, but a small little quaint neighborhood right around. There's a creek right behind us. We had a ravine. It was almost like our house had a moat around it. Um, but we did a lot of outdoor stuff, and it was fun. It was hot, humid. I don't, I haven't sweated that much. I could work out all day long and wouldn't sweat that much as I did in Houston, nowadays. But it was fun. It was good. Houston's a crazy town. It's known kind of as a party town.
Yeah.
And, I didn't ignore that. I had fun. But I always like to say now I'm glad to be from there because I literally moved from there because I'd done some traveling overseas into Europe and Asia and really, just in like personally what Houston and Texas in general had to offer. One of the big things was the seasons, not having four seasons really. And I also thought to myself, it's like if I get married and raise, start a family, I do not want to raise kids in a city like this because there's a lot of crime in that big city, like most big cities. So that's why I moved to the Northwest, and I literally just packed up my bags one day and stopped off in Denver for my brother's wedding, and just kept going after that.
Wow, that's great. That's a fantastic story. And growing up with three brothers, boy, your mother was outnumbered.
Yeah, yeah. My dad at one time got so tired of us fighting, he bought us sparring gear, and he said, "If you're gonna hit each other," he said, "put the gear on." We had the headpieces, we put a mouthpiece in, and we had sparring gloves. So,
I gotta love that.
and my
That,
brother here, and my younger brother's like my best friend now. So even though I
oh,
used to beat the you know what out of him when he was little.
well, you got it out of your system when you were young, so that's
Yeah,
good.
totally. But
And
overall, it was a pretty good. I mean, we were lucky to live in a really nice area, and went to good schools, and it was a pretty good experience growing up.
and
And
that's
I was gonna say we were able to be outside all the time, which is what
oh,
I miss living in the Northwest. And one of the reasons we moved from Seattle down to Bend, the main reason for me was to get my kids outside more because I have my twins were micro preemies.
oh,
They were born at like 25 weeks, 5 days, and their respiratory systems weren't that developed when they're born. So for years, we were just very nervous about, them getting sick and having taken to the hospital. It happened all the time, but
oh.
you don't want to take a kid out in the rain, if they got respiratory issues in the cold rain. So that kind of made me feel like I had had enough of that climate, and that's why I moved down to Bend.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That was an adjustment for me from North Carolina. The lack of humidity, my hair did crazy things.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I
mine turned gray. It's weird.
well, okay, I've got some. You know how women are, we tend to hide some of it. Eventually you just let it go and say, forget it.
Exactly.
Well, you've had an interesting life with your children, and
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds moving them here was a smart move. So let me ask you on the theme of courage. I'd like to know what time of your life, or do you have some experiences where you might have had to muster up some extra courage, and moving from Texas to the Northwest, I have to say that was courageous. But tell me if you've got a good story or two about when you had to summon up courage to make changes or go through some tough times.
Yeah, I mean, it's directly related to moving to the Northwest, actually. My late 20s, I took my time getting through college. The joke with my wife and I is always, she jokes, says, "Oh, you're so smart." I'm like, well, that's what 7 years of college will do you. Of course, it was just my undergrad in 7 years.
Oh,
Um, but my late 20s, mid to late 20s, when I got out of college, I just got a little depressed. I wasn't doing anything I wanted to do. I was working kind of a dead end job. And that went on for a few years. And then I basically just started doing some research on where I might want to live because I had lived in Colorado, went to school in Colorado for a while, and just decided to move to the Northwest based on what I'd researched. And that was kind of the courageous step. I didn't know anybody up here, but I had two friends from Houston who worked in Alaska every year. So I packed up my truck. I drove all the way to Portland, put all my stuff in storage, then took off up into Canada and drove all the way up to like Prince Rupert. It's about 1,000 miles inland. Hopped on a ferry and stayed with my friends for about a month in Alaska, and then came back and just started a new life basically. But as things happen often with people, my second day there, first of all, it was summer. They were having their summer festival there. Um, and all the naval ships come in, and I go into this pub, and there's a guy there, got his pearly whites on, and started chatting with him. And his girlfriend walks in, we all start chatting, and they're like, "Where are you living?" I was like, "I just moved here like 2 days ago." And he's like, "We have a room for rent." So got the room. She's like, do you have a job yet? And I was like, no. She goes, well, we're hiring. So literally within like 3 days there, I had a room to rent and I got a job. So it was a really good sign for me. But I think it was pretty tough moving to a place where, I'd never been before. And it's quite different. As you know, coming, from North Carolina, the Northwest is unbelievable, but it's breathtaking when you get here. But it's a new place. People are different, especially in Seattle when I ended up moving there because people they have what's called the Seattle freeze where they don't really make eye contact with you. And coming from the South, it's always howdy or hi. You're always talking to people.
Mhm.
People look at me like, what's this guy trying to do? Is he going to rob me? I was saying hi to everybody. But yeah, that was a pretty courageous move. I basically drove about 35 or 3,200 miles in about a week to make it up there into Canada. Um, and yeah, it was pretty neat. Great, great experience in my life.
Wow. Yeah, coming from the South, when I got here, it was culture shock. It wasn't just the weather. I noticed that with people. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? They're just, yeah, they're not just a Seattle. I mean, I got the freeze here too. I couldn't figure out the rudeness was because I thought that they don't know me. Why are they acting this way? Because you used to eye contact.
Yep. And
You,
always saying hi to my parents told me always say hi to people, acknowledge them when you walk past them. And it's a weird feeling at first. And now I want to go back down to Houston. I'm like, these people are obnoxious, man.
well, that's true. Now, where I was, I lived my whole adult life in the Raleigh-Durham area, which
Oh,
became
nice.
now has become more metropolitan and multicultural. So it's gotten to be very different, not unlike some of these like big cities here. However, however, one thing I noticed when I moved here, and you probably did too, is I was raised to say please and thank you.
Yeah.
And I never, you don't just say, hey, do this. But I tell you what, up here, yeah, it's like, well, what do you mean that's rude? Yeah, it's rude.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. We've really my wife's from Virginia.
Mm,
So we've really drilled in our kids' heads to be polite. And like they ask to be excused from the table. They're like, thank you and please. So they're really good about that kind of stuff. But those are things I really appreciate picking up from the South. Just some of the politeness, and it's not that people are rude here. It's just a little different, but I've become accustomed to it.
yeah, you roll with it. You don't have to act the same way. And not everybody's like that, but it was a big shock for me as well. And I love your story about going to Alaska. I didn't know that. And I haven't known you that long, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, it was fun.
How did you adjust to isn't it 24 hours of daylight there in the summer?
Yeah, it was in late May, but
Okay.
it never really got completely dark that I remember. But I knew after being up there for about 3 weeks, it's like, yeah, I don't think I want to work on any fishing boats. And the lifestyle was just a little different. People go out and they come back in after they go on their fishing trips and stuff. And it's just like, they're thinking I'm going to drink as much as I can over the next week before I head out again. It's like I did that. I've got made it through college, kind of like that. So I don't need to be doing that at this age of my life. But yeah, it was quite the adjustment. And
Yeah.
then when I worked in Portland, I worked inside this building. It had these small little windows that you had to walk over to even look out. So in the winter months, I would leave my house. It was dark because I worked all the way in Hillsboro. I'd get to work. I'd work inside all day long, and it was dark before I got off work. So I could not wait for the weekends, even if it was looking at a gray sky.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah, and it's not healthy from what everything I've learned and read. It's not healthy, and
yeah.
that's why the industry of making these lights that are replicate the sun have gotten so popular
Oh
in the
yeah, definitely.
yeah. Well, tell us tell myself and your audience tell a little bit about what you do now, but a little bit about how you got to what you're doing now because you went through a major transition in career as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that a few times. Um,
Oh, okay.
I started off in sales, and I did sales. I've got about 18, 19 years of sales experience. I worked for software companies mostly, and I worked for a pager company for a while, and then a Sprint small business division selling. This is back in the day, long distance services to small businesses. That was a fun job. But yeah, I got a little tired of the sales, and I was doing pharmaceutical sales for about 5.5 years. I had an opportunity to get out with the severance package, and I took it. And I had been researching starting my own business, more of an import export business, and that's what I decided to do. So I had money coming in for at least 5.5 months. I had insurance for a full year. It's like this is the perfect time in my life to do this. And I basically put a plan together to get into the wine industry. I was
Right.
looking at beers first. I was actually originally going to do exports and worked with a lot of wineries in Washington, Oregon to try to get their wines overseas. I made some trips over to the Philippines and Korea and China and didn't really get any good bites on it. And then I just came up with an idea to import. So kind of shifted again. I put a plan together, went down to Argentina because it was kind of hot to get the Argentine wines. This is back in 2004, 2005, and found some wines that I really liked. Worked with one winery. They helped me develop my own brand.
Hmm.
And literally within 4 months, I had my first container coming in. And then I put the sales hat back on. So we're talking 1,000 cases of wine. Put the sales hat back on, had to go out and sell. And I was literally selling it out of the back of my truck. Just
Yeah.
have cases of wine back there and get people to taste them and at these small restaurants mostly at first. But we grew that pretty good. I ended up hiring about 5 people. We had about 290 clients at one time. We were in all the Fred Meyers and the QFCs, which is another Kroger store. Got into all those and a number of different, pretty much all the wine shops, and a lot of restaurants. And then that all came to an end after about 7.5 years. They changed the liquor laws in Washington, and just prior to that, um, they they kind of pushed all the small distributors out of the big stores. And since I was in all the QFCs and Fred Meyers, that was the bulk of my business. And I just made a decision to get out and do something different. And that's when I got in. I went and took a couple more software sales jobs after that, and then just decided to do my own software company, a white label product. And that was a flop. After about 9 months, I gave up on that and decided just to start a marketing agency. It was about 9.5 years ago. And we did social media marketing at first. And then I started bringing in or offering more services and to where we're doing pretty much everything. And that's kind of morphed into what I'm doing now because we sell a complete system, and it deals with generating the leads, nurturing those leads, processing them, and then using AI to help book those leads and get appointments. Yeah, so it's been interesting. It's like I wish my kids are like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's like, you got to start building at the bottom, the base, and you start adding these skills that you can use later in life. And that's kind of what I've done. I've done it on accident. I mean, a lot of people are intentional about that. It's just kind of like, oh, I've got all this sales experience and I want to do this in marketing, but I still need to sell. So it's kind of helped out. But yeah, that's kind of what I've worked into. And we're small. There's only 3 of us with the company right now, and we outsource. We got some other VAs we work with from time to time. And that's kind of the goal, is to build a business that doesn't need a lot of employees, that you can automate a lot of. And that's what we're doing right now.
Well, that is fascinating. And from what I understand, and what we've talked about over the time we've known each other, is you have a very specific market that you work with that's very unique in its needs. And so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I during the pandemic, for about 4 years prior to that, I was working specifically with med spas. And when the pandemic came, they all had to close their doors. I had a couple, I think it was 2 of them, that said, "Hey, we'll just pay you a real small amount just to kind of keep things going." But all the other ones, they just cut their marketing budgets out. So about 95% of my revenue was gone in about 2 months. And I had to go take a contract job with another company. And they actually called on estate plan and elder law attorneys. My dad's an attorney, so I know the industry a little bit. I mean, I feel like I grew up in a courtroom the way my dad he was a trial attorney, so we were always on trial, it seemed like. But So I understood the industry a little bit, and after I went back on my own, just about a little over a year ago, I probed a lot of the different niches out there, and just said, look, I know this other industry, I know what they need, I know what their pain points are, and I know I can help them because there aren't a lot of people doing what I do for that industry. They're doing offering a little more traditional, and I say traditional, I don't mean like paper marketing stuff, but just basically creating a ton of content and doing a little email marketing and maybe some advertising. But a lot of these companies are not utilizing AI and automation. And a lot of these estate plan and law attorneys are pretty small outfits and they don't have the staff to do a lot of this stuff. So I'm like, this is a good opportunity. We could offer them something that's going to free up their time to focus on their clients. Because really what these people would do is it's feast or famine. They go out there and they market, they do seminars and things like that. They get clients and they're like, okay, let's put all that on hold. We got to do the work now. And then they're back right, when the work's done, they're back doing the sales stuff again. So I've designed something and it's called the E360 lead flow system. And it basically takes care of everything. All they need to do is show up for the consultation. If they close it, they just need to do the work after that. They don't have to worry about anything else. But yeah, and then now I'm actually looking at some other niches as well for some of the other services I offer that aren't specific because my business has really been doing local SEO for the last 9 years. That's kind of our bread and butter, but it's changing so much right now. I mean, there are people like Neil Patel, he's an expert in the field who's like, you need to find some other things to do because SEO, it's going to be dead by the end of 2025. Who knows what's going to happen. But we are looking at just offering these packages with the lead flow system to other industries right now. And I'm going to go back to the med spa because I know that industry pretty well as well. So that's kind of what we're putting together right now, putting together some email and ad campaigns to reach out to some of those people, but not offering the full package where you've got the SEO and paid ads and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And the industry, yeah, I hear you. I'm not in it, but it does affect everybody at
Yeah.
some level. The just dealing with my clients and what I provide for them, it's constantly changing. And sometimes you just don't know what you're doing. You just throw stuff out there and see what sticks on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, we used to be able to look at data and you can analyze the data over a long period of time, but the problem now is by the time you get finished analyzing that data, it's all changed. And it's like you might as well just throw a lot of it out. I mean, some of it's always going to be good. I mean, I still believe in SEO. It's going to be around, but it has changed. And we talk about, search engine optimization, optimizing things for search engines. And now you've got the generative engine optimization for the AI stuff that Google's putting out there and, Perplexity and all these other LLMs. And now we got to figure out how to optimize for that. Luckily, it's fairly similar. So you don't have to change a ton of stuff. But, some of these searches you do, especially for local searches, where in the past you would have ads at the top, then the local pack, the Google business profiles, and then you'd have 10 links underneath that. I've seen some now come up where you've got 3 links. And especially for the legal field, they're dominated by Lawfine, Avo, Justia. Those are huge, huge companies that basically own those top 3 spots for most search terms. So you got to figure out other ways,
Mm.
because they say that you know, you're not on the first page, you're not going to get found. I mean, you're nobody. Almost all the clicks coming from the first page listings. But when some of these searches only have 3 of them on there and it's these big companies that are taking over those spots, I mean, we got to find other ways. The big push we have, and we've been doing this for a long time, is really getting in that local pack. But it's getting harder and harder too, because people are learning how to game the system on that. And Google seems to be not punishing people for things they said you can't do.
Yeah, Google can be tricky, no question about it. I was thinking about that earlier. Speaking of, you were talking about just the pager industry, and I'm in that category too. How well do I remember wearing a pager? Now, I'm probably going to date myself, but one of my first sales jobs was selling the bricks that went in the car, and you had to have the antenna installed,
Oh
and
yeah.
but I was on the cutting edge of voicemail because I was involved in that telecom industry, and sold. for a while to the one of the first applications of voicemail. And boy, you talk about resistance. Oh
Yeah.
my word.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
It's actually one of the biggest problems we have with the niche that we focus on is that they're a little resistant to change and new technology. And a lot of it's valid why they wouldn't want to take on some, especially the AI, because it's a legal field. And you got to be really careful. So, something that part of our sales pitch is really it's like these AI assistants or bots that we build, we train them on each and every company. I mean, we tell them what they can say, what they can't say, and it's like if do not steer away from your main task here, because if you don't, they can start throwing things up there, and it's funny just watching some of these. I mean, I see something I know is like an AI bot in chat, and I'll ask it questions, and it's funny the answers you get. It's like, do they know their bot's telling me this?
Oh, oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and it's a totally different world, but you've got the another industry is the medical industry. You mentioned med spas.
Yep.
That one's, I mean, we're talking regulations
Yep.
and legal repercussions and all kinds of stuff you have to deal with. So yeah, you
All the
got
HIPAA compliance, and it's not too hard. You just don't. What I like to tell people in that industry is that we're going to build a marketing tool for you. We're not going to integrate with your practice management software.
hmm
Yeah, that's where you might get into trouble because you're sharing that some of this data, and the data we collect for them is going to be used specifically for this. And here's the data we're going to collect. We're not going to be asking them, about their body or anything like that or any kind of medical stuff. So as
Yeah.
long as you keep it clean, you know what you should not be asking for,
hmm
you're good to go on that.
Well, that's good. So another quick thought. About like confidence. You're a very confident businessman and an individual. Let me ask you this, where has a lack of confidence or where courage is one thing, but when it comes to confidence, a lot of us kind of draw back. Have you had any experiences with too much or not enough? Any just where
Uh,
that's concerned?
my wife would say probably too much. I'm pretty low key and pretty. I always like to describe myself as realistic. Um, but I also am one of those people I can see the big picture, the long path. And my wife, even when I went back to work for myself, she's like, "You're going to give up all that money to go back to basically starting at square one again?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I know I'm going to get there."
hmm
Um, so she would say I'm overconfident. Um, I think one of the biggest problems is I'm also somewhat perfectionist. So when I'm launching a campaign, often hesitant to launch it because it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
And every other market will tell you, it needs to be good, but just get it going because realistically, you have zero chance of getting anything out of it if you don't launch it. Uh,
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can go and you can tweak it if you notice something. So, so that's kind of what I've kind of forced myself to do. It's like just hit the button, launch the campaign, and then I'll go back and check it. And sometimes I will find an error and I'll correct it. But that's probably been my biggest struggle with confidence is like, did I do this right?
Yeah. Well, I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I would relate to that. Now, we live and die by connections in our industry and also personally. I'm one who has to date lived on referrals and people finding me, knowing the right people. And in your life, I love the story going back to Alaska where you just took a chance, you walked into a place, you made one connection that turned into another that kind of set things in motion for you. How have connections continued in your life to move you forward?
Yeah. So, I worked in the restaurant industry all through college, and I got out of college, moved to Colorado for a year, worked at a residential treatment facility, making next to zero money. And then that's when I was kind of thinking of moving to the Northwest and went back to Houston for about 5 months. And I worked in a restaurant just to get a little extra cash. And when I moved to the Northwest, when I got into uh, Portland, I was there for a year and a half. And then I decided I was going to move to Seattle. And I literally, the two people I knew went to Alaska. They had a tiny home in Seattle that they were renting, and they said, "You're welcome to stay here. You're gonna have to pitch a tent." I'm like, "Oh, it's late October. That's perfect for the Northwest." It's like 40 degrees outside and raining every day. And
Oh,
so I slept in a tent in their backyard for 2 months almost. But the cool thing was about 2 weeks after I got there, I started sending resumes out, and I had an interview downtown, and I had put a suit on for it and everything back in the day when you had to wear suits for interviews. And it came out of the interview, and I turned the corner, and there was a grand opening of a restaurant, and it just happened to be the same restaurant I worked for in Houston as a chain, national chain. And I don't mind telling you what it is. It was Rock Bottom, so they're based in Colorado.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I walked in there, I was just checking it out. And the manager I work for in Houston comes walking up. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? I was like, I just moved here. I just got on a job interview. He's like, you
Man.
don't have a job? I was like, no. He goes, start tomorrow. He goes, we just need people. We don't have enough staff here. So I actually started the job the next day. Um, so that was kind of interesting, the connection I made. I had a good relationship with him, and it paid off. Um, and I only worked there for about 5 months because about a month after I started working there, I decided to go interview for a job in Japan and got that job. But there was about a 3 month period they needed to get all the paperwork done. Um, yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Who knows how long I would have had to live in that tent in the backyard. I mean, it would have been brutal going all the way through December and January.
Oh, in the Northwest, it would be on brutal.
Yeah.
Oh my word, yeah. So speaking of restaurants, I went to Houston one time. I had was there for like almost a week visiting a friend I'd met through business and had the best Mexican I don't Tex-Mex food I've ever had in my entire life before or since. And I can never remember the name, really big, but I remember the meal, one meal came on a platter.
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of got there's two different ones. There's one that's Tex-Mex and one that's got a Cajun flair, and I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. So it's probably Papacitos.
Yes,
Yeah. I worked there for a little while.
Papados and Papacitos. Those
Yeah.
went to
And they
both.
had Papa Mia, which is their Italian version.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah. I don't know if that's still around, but they had Papa Seafood also. I think that's how they got started.
Boy,
They had barbecue, everything. So
oh my goodness, that was the one experience with those two meals. Woo, but I was shocked because they
yeah.
came out and I'm like, well, they do everything bigger in
Yeah.
Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you were in the industry and worked there, that's funny. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Well, you have a lot of stories. You might want to consider writing a book.
Yeah.
I think it's great, but wait till your teenagers are grown and then you'll have more stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to wrap us up here. Kurt, are there any final parting words of wisdom or advice or anything you'd like to share at all before we wrap it up?
Uh, I don't, maybe just, always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, my dad got out of law school and just started his own law practice. He never went to work for anybody else. Then he ran a couple side businesses. I mean, he had a beer distributorship and some other things, and he was into property management for a while. So it kind of instilled that entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I held off for so long, And I think the word of wisdom I would give is, if you feel like that, especially in this day and age, just put a plan together and try it. I
Mhm.
wish I would have tried some of this stuff when I was a lot younger.
Yeah.
Even the wine business, we just had our twins, and that's when I had to shut down. Um, I probably could have made things work and revamped everything, but it wasn't worth it, because I had other responsibilities. Now, if I was 30 years old and not married and no kids, I probably would have stayed in it because that was a great industry to be in. I really enjoyed it and I miss it. So, but yeah, if you got a great idea, just try it. Run it. I ran it through past a lot of people I knew, and got a lot of feedback on it. I did a lot of calling, get some information. I called what were going to be my competition. People are pretty open usually to helping you out. And in the industry, especially like marketing, it's like you don't find a whole bunch of them that are just like, this is all my information. You can't have it. People are willing to share because there's no shortage of clients out there. So, but yeah, just do a little homework, put a plan together, and then act on it. Don't wait around.
I agree wholeheartedly. And having worked with entrepreneurs in a number of industries, it's something I say, well, what is your idea? And some ideas you got to keep a job and build it, but other times you can jump in and take that chance.
Yeah.
So I agree. I mean, I work for people. I tried corporate for a little while, and yeah, I was told by one of the members, one of the guys that I worked for, that I was how did he put it? I'd better learn how to take orders if I was going to continue doing what I was doing. I'm like, I don't take orders. I'm
Yeah.
not- I don't follow orders real well. I've been told that more than once. So
Yeah.
if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, go for it. We certainly,
Yeah.
recommend it.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age also the access to tools and information, you can easily get things started on the side. I mean, that's what happens. A lot of people fall into marketing because they have an idea, they start doing something, and they realize after, a year, like I'm making more money on my side business than I am my job. So, and they jump in at full time. There's a lot of accidental marketing people out there.
I'm quite sure there's a lot of them out there, period. So,
Yeah.
oh, well, this has been great, Kurt. I just
Yeah.
say thank you again for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah. It's been nice.
Yeah, yeah, fun. Um, all of Kurt's information will be available at the end of the broadcast if you keep listening. Plus, it'll be on YouTube in the not too distant future, as well as my own website, janicedebo.com, which you can see right behind me. So thank you for joining us to our guest for Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast. Again, I'm Janice Debo, your host, and Kurt Lohmann as my guest, and we will see you soon with another podcast.
Nice to see you, James.
Thank you.